For customers who like to use cash from an ATM, there are worries as well. In 2019, ATM robberies were fairly rare. The FBI reported only 31 that year. 2 years later, the number jumped to 254. Now, if someone robs a bank, they're charged with federal crimes, but most ATM thefts do not fall under the federal bank robbery laws. ATMs located at a convenience or grocery store are particularly vulnerable because often they're not owned by banks and enjoy protections big banks offer. Republican Congressman John Rose from Tennessee is the sponsor of a House bill called the Safe Access to Cash Act. It's being introduced today. Congressman Rose, thank you so much for coming on the show today. Let's just start with this. Why is this legislation important? How does it protect people who are trying to withdraw their money from an ATM?
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you for having me on this morning. It's important because really kind of an accident of history. When the Federal Bank Robbery Act was passed back in 1934, later when ATMs came along in 1969, they were first only allowed to be owned by federal depository institutions, banks, credit unions, savings and loans. But then in 1996, Congress changed the rules to allow non-banks to own ATMs. Unfortunately, they were not swept into the federal bank robbery law. And so really this is an extension to provide the same protection for non-bank owned ATMs, so-called independently owned ATMs, to make it clear that they are, in fact, constitute bank robbery as well.
And what struck me is that this is actually a bipartisan effort. I want to bring in Representative Glenn Ivey as well, who is co-sponsoring this bill. Congressman Ivey, it looks like we got you established now. What brought this on? Why are you guys working together on this?
Well, I think it makes sense. It's legislation that is beneficial to, everyone. We have 60% of these independently owned ATMs across the country. It's almost 280,000 of them. So it impacts people, in red states, blue states, purple states. It makes a difference all the way across the country. So we joined together to make it more likely that the legislation gets passed and we can help people out with this issue.
So let's say someone has their money stolen from them at an ATM, Congressman Rose. What are their first steps outside of contacting law enforcement?
Well, I think the first step would be to contact law enforcement if there was such a robbery. Unfortunately, right now, if they were transacting at a non-bank owned ATM, that would not fall under the purview of the FBI, or it would not be considered a federal crime. And so this law would extend it to make it clear that it is a federal crime. And the thieves know this, so they are targeting non-bank ATMs, and that puts everyone at risk. It puts obviously the customers at risk. It puts the owners of those machines at risk. It puts the servicers, the people who put money in the machines and maintain them, at risk. And so we need to make sure that the federal bank robbery law covers these non-bank owned ATMs to make it safer for people. And I would add to what Congressman Ivey has said. One of the important things to keep in mind is that users of ATMs, particularly the non-bank owned ATMs, are often in underbanked communities. They're obviously often in rural areas, like the areas in much of my district, sometimes in urban districts or urban areas that are underbanked as well, and obviously serving many times some of the working class Americans that may not have access to ATMs at a bank.
And we're showing a theft in progress right there. It shows you how determined some of the criminals are. Representative Ivey, back to you. Why has it taken so long for legislation like this to have this be given federal government oversight for an issue like this? Why has the federal government stayed away from it?
Well, I know there was an effort last year. I wasn't in Congress last year. Congressman Rose and I believe former Congresswoman Maloney tried to move forward with this bill last year. But, sometimes it takes time to move legislation in Congress. The public won't be surprised to hear that. But I think now is a good moment for us. I think, we've got a bipartisan effort to move this thing forward, and I think we'll have a chance to get it done this year.
And Congressman Rose, this legislation is a reintroduction from the same bill from last session. Why are you just reintroducing the same bill, and have you made any tweaks to it?
Sure. No, I think it's basically the same language from last year that former Congressman Maloney and I introduced. And The reason is obviously you showed at the top of this segment, which is the profound increase, the dramatic increase in crime at non-bank ATMs that we've seen over the last few years. And I think it's essentially criminals recognizing that the punishments and the investigatory power that will be put behind pursuing those crimes is not the same as if they rob a bank. And so that's why, that's what is really prompting this legislation.
A rare show of bipartisanship. It's very encouraging. I hope the folks on Capitol Hill working on the debt ceiling and all the other hot button issues can take the nod and run with that. Congressman, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate you coming on.
Thank you.
Thank you.